Hi, everybody. Welcome
I al-
to the last reactor session for the DP-900. Hi, Kevin. How you doing today?
yeah, good. Thanks for letting yourself.
Good. Thanks. So I'm Belinda Allen, and this is my wonderful friend Kevin Chant from the other side of the pond, as he would say. We're here to talk about exams. Oh, thank you. Our producer was telling me I said the DP-900. This is the DP-700, the brand new exam that came out. So I want to make that clear. Um, yes, the new data engineer plan. So we're here to talk about how to get ready for exam, what to do on exam day. Kevin asked me a really interesting question as we were getting ready. What was the first year I took a Microsoft certified exam? And I had to go in the Wayback Machine, but I think it was around 2002. And for you, Kevin, what was your answer?
So my first Microsoft certification is 20 years old this year.
Oh, and what was that?
It was for Windows XP, so some
Ah,
time ago.
yeah. Yeah, mine goes way back to before XP was out. Back to some of the Dynamics products, and some of the financial products. But let's talk about Fabric and let's talk about the DP-700 today. So let's go into the next slide, Kevin. I'll
Sure.
introduce myself. Thank you, Belinda Allen. I live in South Carolina. This is a little bit about me, but what qualifies me to be here today, besides taking a lot of certification exams? I'm a Microsoft MVP for the data platform, and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer as well. And this is all of my contact information. I love helping people learn their product and improve themselves and improve their organizations. I'm the director of enablement for a global partner, iLink Digital. And Kevin, let's go to the next slide and learn a little bit about you.
Sure. So, hi everybody. Yeah, I'm a lead technology advocate for McCall in the Netherlands. However, as some of you probably pick up from the accent, I'm actually originally from the southwest of the UK. Like Belinda, I'm also a Microsoft Data Platform MVP and a Microsoft certified trainer. You can find me online in a few different places, as you can see on the screen. And just to add as well, one of the reasons why I'm in a position to be able to deliver this is because I've trained a lot of people with Fabric certifications already, quite a large number, and also done a various number of blog posts relating to Fabric certifications as well, and other certifications, if I'm honest. Anyway, let's move forward with the actual materials to hand, and
Yep.
let's not forget our
Oh, oh,
moderators. I am
yeah,
so
we've got
sorry.
we got great friends that are helping us out today,
We have.
working in the wings. My very wonderful dear friend, who I can happily say I got to see this weekend, Kevin Arnold, another Microsoft MVP. He's from Dallas, Texas, and Prajity Jane from the UK as well. Lovely lady, also a data platform MVP. She's over there in your neck of the woods.
She is. And in fact, Belinda, true fact, me and Pragati have a very large number of hours together providing Microsoft Fabric training already.
Oh, wow, that's incredible.
So,
Um, that's fun. I love that.
yeah, so the
Yeah,
audience is in a good place for this session, that's for sure.
they sure are. Let's move on. This is the last one in this particular session. So all of these are available on the YouTube channel and on probably on the Reactor page as well for Microsoft. You could see some of those URLs going across the bottom on the ticker, and some of them will be popping up within the labs or within the chat on YouTube as well. There have been a lot of them, very important topics. Today, we're focusing, though, on how to prepare for the exam, how to take it, and how to make it easier for you to pass. All right, we'll move on to the next slide. Before we get started, though, we have to talk about the thing that we're super excited about right now, which is the upcoming Fab Conference, also known as FabCon. And here you could see there is a discount code for $150. It's in the amazing, going to take place in the amazing Las Vegas. That's where it took place last year. It was an awesome conference last year. This year is looking like it's going to be even better. I'm excited. I have a session this year on data science, woohoo, and predicting sales forecasting with notebooks and data science. And Kevin, you're doing double duty at the conference.
Yeah, so as some of you know, if you've been to a Fabric conference in the past, I tend to help out on the community side of it, and I'm hoping to do so again this year. However, in addition to that, I'm actually doing a workshop which is very relevant for today's session, because I'm actually doing a workshop about certifications there. So in the context of how to gain either DP-600 or the DP-700 certifications. Anyway.
Excellent. And what's the other thing you're doing? You're also working in the community area.
I'm hoping to work in the community area.
Oh, okay.
So we shall see. I am wearing my community top in advance just in case. So we'll see what happens.
Sway the powers that be. Now they're doing something exciting this year. They have a championship for basically creating a Power BI report. There are some really interesting criteria. Week 4 is happening now. There's 4 weeks. The winner gets like a paid trip to FabCon, or I don't remember all of the good things. Check out this link to see. I know it's 3 nights of hotel. I know it's the conference pass, and there's actually a competition that they'll eventually compete live in Europe. So I think that's going to be super exciting. My friend, I was talking with Shannon Lindsay this weekend about it. I've told her I can't do it because I think my reports are valuable, but they're kind of ugly babies, and nobody can call them ugly but me. So I'm not willing to compete in it, but it should be a lot of fun. She was teasing us that they're going to use a boxing ring for the final round. We'll see. But if you're interested, check it out, because you have to have your submission in for this final week 4, by 11:59 p.m. Pacific time this Friday. This is the last week, so you'll need to have it in by Friday, which means you need to get to work really quick. They are working on the winners for week 3. They've already have winners for week 1 and 2, so definitely take advantage of that. Let's go ahead and go on to the next slide, and let's start talking about what we're going to be doing, some of the good things about today, and then we'll start in on the content. There is an exam voucher here for 50% off. That's a really good deal. It is only good until March 31st, and it is specifically for the DP-700 exam. So take advantage of utilizing it. I don't know if and maybe you know the answer to this, Kevin. Since it said why supplies last, is there a limited number of them available?
I suspect there is, according to the demand. Okay. I can have a look at the small print here. Okay. So, yeah.
But keep in mind, you have to redeem it before March 31st. So if you're going to do it, actually, you're here today. I would encourage you to get that URL, get your exam ready. And the first thing you do after today is go ahead and schedule your exam. And hopefully you'll learn a little bit about what you need to do that. And schedule it, and then spend the time from the rest of today until that exam date getting ready for the exam itself.
Yeah.
Now, this session, go ahead. Yeah. Well, a little bit. That's 20 days from now. So you just have a little bit of time, because you also need to start planning your trip to FabCon. So
this is so very true.
True. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This session is meant to be live and interactive. So we have Prajity and Kevin Arnold on the chat. They're answering questions fast and furiously. And then some of the questions, Kevin and I perhaps will check ourselves. We're going to try to save some time at the end, especially to help answer those specific questions about how to, well, you could ask anything you want.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you get too personal, we might not answer, but we'll try to, relevant questions we'll answer.
We will do our best. And just to obviously kind of correct ourselves from something we were talking about just now with the voucher application, just a slight amendment, folks. If you do get approved to have a voucher, you actually have to redeem the voucher by the 31st. You can take the exam for a certain amount of time afterwards. So just to correct ourselves there. But yeah, like Belinda said, this is a live and interactive session. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Well, in that case, the FabCon starts on March 31st. So that's a great time to go in, take your pre-con session and learn a little bit more at the FabCon, and then come back and take your questions or take the exam when you get better. This is our agenda for today. We're going to talk about why you'd want to get certified, how to prepare, and then we're going to talk about the exam format itself, and we're going to give you a lot of tips and tricks. We have, Kevin and I have shared tips with each other, and I've even gone out, and this is appropriate with Kevin Arnold answering questions on the chat. Kevin and I are in a Saturday study group. I went to our study group and they gave me a whole bunch more. So we'll be offering some of those. And then, as I mentioned, we'll try to save some time at the end for the Q&A. So, Kevin, let's talk about getting prepared for the exam.
Right. So it's over to me then. And first of all, we'll talk about why you should actually get certified in the first place. And the reality is that there are a lot of different reasons why. So obviously, as you can see here on the different hexagons, I go across from left to the right because obviously that tends to be logical for everybody. So first of all, demonstrate proficiency. So yeah, if you go through to do the exams, you can demonstrate that you're proficient in certain areas relating to the exam. Also, as you see there in the darker blue, you get hired faster. So there have been studies that have shown that a lot of employers tend to favor candidates who are certified. I've actually seen this come to life in the real world, if I'm honest. You can get recognized by your peers and by your employers, etc. If you gain a certification. Those of you on social media will see when people have gained a certification, they post it online on certain platforms like LinkedIn, they get congratulated by their peers, they get recognition, etc., etc. So next at the top in dark purple is formalized knowledge. And I like how I point when I could actually use my clicker at times, but we shall see if it comes back to life for that one. So yeah, so formalized knowledge. I personally think this is quite a significant one. So to give you an example of this, in the past, we had our Learn Together series for everybody for learning to do the DP-600 certification. So a load of us from the community showed you all how to do things with Power BI workloads like semantic models, etc. And as you remember, Belinda, we went through lake houses, warehouses, etc., etc. Now you have to learn some other new things for the DP-700, including real-time intelligence. So for those of you who have got a bit of a knowledge gap there, go in and study for this exam will actually formalize your knowledge in the real-time intelligence arena, especially if you're complementing it quite a bit as well. So it's something very important I want to highlight for you all here. And get rewarded. So studies have shown, studies have shown that people who get certified tend to get rewarded a lot in the workplace. And to go, a lot of employers actually favor people to get certified. Well, not favor people to get certified, they favor for people to get promoted if they get certified. And kind of related to this as well is that for some employers, it's actually a requirement for people to have certifications or a number of new certifications to be able to do certain roles. So if you get the DP-700 certification, this puts you in a good place to be able to do this. And last but by no means least is to feel satisfied, because as Belinda will tell you, there is not a better feeling. Well, there are a few better feelings. It's a really great feeling to put in the effort to study for an exam, and then when you go to press that final button to finding out you've passed and usually gained a certification. So yeah, obviously satisfaction, and of course hand in hand that you feel more confident about doing work in the future with whatever technology you get certified for. So some interesting statistics to go hand in hand with what I've just mentioned. So as you can see here, 35% of individuals say that getting certified has led to a salary increase. 26% reported promotions after getting certified. 36% said that certifications help them perform complex tasks more confidently. And in essence, I've seen this, so I know this is very true. And 35% say they are more influential during cloud deployments. Obviously, Fabric is deemed as a software as a service solution in the cloud. So, of course, if you get certified with the data engineering certification, you will be much more influential in this area. So, let's talk about another aspect relating to this. There is a data skills shortage on the market at the moment, especially as far as working with data is concerned. So as you can see on the slide here, and one of the things that some of you may interestingly have picked up about the Data Rose pay, obviously that's the average salary, I do believe, and Belinda can correct me if I'm wrong here. In the United States of America, of course, that will vary depending on where you are in the world. However, it does highlight the fact that data platform professionals are very much in demand at this moment in time. And as you can see at the bottom, by the explanation about the fact that it is essential for business. As the majority of you have probably heard, data is deemed as the new gold by a lot of employers. So let's talk very briefly now about Microsoft Fabric. So obviously Microsoft Fabric, like I mentioned just now, is deemed as a software as a service solution. I will just give a quick recap. I'm sure a lot of you watching have an awareness of what Fabric is anyway. So it is a software as a service solution, and the idea is that you can work with various different workloads, which some people call experiences, under one roof. So for example, data engineering related items like lakehouses and notebooks, data warehouses, elements like data factories. So for example, data pipelines and data workflows, real-time intelligence, which I talked about earlier, data science, and industry solutions. And just for the benefit of anybody who has yet to see Microsoft Fabric, hopefully I should be able to show you it now. So when you go into Microsoft Fabric, you will see a screen similar to this. Those of you who have not been into Microsoft Fabric for a while may notice that actually when you first go into it, this section's had a bit of a facelift. Those of you who are still looking for workloads, you can still see all of them in the workloads tab. If I scroll down, here's all the workloads I was talking about earlier. So data engineering, data factory, data science, etc. This is all to hand when you just go to one website. So obviously I'm not going to go into too much detail about Microsoft Fabric here. If you go onto Microsoft Learn, there is an entire learning path called Get Started with Fabric for those of you who are not too familiar with Microsoft Fabric. If you've yet to see Microsoft Fabric at all, I do also recommend going to watch the digital launch videos that Microsoft released a couple years ago now to go hand in hand with the Fabric announcement. Now, to manage expectations, parts of it are out of date, but it will give you an awareness and a good foundation about Microsoft Fabric from the start still. So that is all I'm really going to cover about Microsoft Fabric at this moment in time, folks. If there are questions, obviously, like we said, this is a live Q&A interactive session. Put them into the chat. So anyway, as some of you are aware, and as I mentioned earlier, when Fabric first came out, there was an exam you could take, DP-600, and you could gain the Fabric Analytics Engineer Associate certification. That focused a lot on the Power BI elements, including Power BI reports and semantic models, as well as various other workloads like lakehouses, data warehouses, etc. However, now there is a new exam, and this focuses on all the data engineering elements in Fabric, including with real-time intelligence. And we'll cover a bit more detail about what's required for this exam next. And by the way, before I go any further, I tend to call this a 2-star certification, because when you gain an associate certification from Microsoft, you get 2 stars in your badge. So I just want to point that out as a good way to remember which certification is. So let's go through and do a quick breakdown of the skills measured which exist in the study guide. So here's a holistic overview of all the skills measured for the DP-700 exam. So first, implement and manage an analytics solution at 30 to 35%. Ingest and transform data is the same, and same goes for monitor and optimize an analytics solution. So we'll give you a brief synopsis of each of the different areas. We'll show you the skills measured page shortly for a deeper breakdown, but we're just going to give you a nice holistic overview here. So first of all, as you can see, for implement and manage an analytics solution, configure Fabric workspace settings. So in other words, know your workspace settings. Implement lifecycle management in Fabric, and this focuses on you having knowledge about database projects, Git integration, and deployment pipelines. I've got a presenter's hot tip here about practice lifecycle management. I will point out as well, I've actually got posts on all 3 of these different topics in aspect for this certain exam. So configure security and governance. So be aware of how to work with security at various levels and other aspects like sensitivity labels, because you can apply those to various Fabric items. And then finally, orchestrate processes. So working basically with pipelines and notebooks, potentially working with them together. So then there's ingest and transform data. So first section, design and implement loading patterns. So basically have knowledge about dimension modeling and loading patterns. Also covers ingest and transform batch data. So essentially how to ingest data with different workloads and how to transform it as well. Ingest data with real-time intelligence and transform it. And in addition to that, also the same level of knowledge for Spark structured streaming. Then finally, there's monitor and optimize an analytics solution. So in this particular section, you need to know how to monitor Fabric items. So basically, a lot of various aspects you need to know about for monitoring for this particular exam. And rather interestingly, and this is the only reference to Power BI workloads in the entire study guide, it includes how to how to monitor, sorry everybody, got very excited there, semantic model refreshes. And then you also need to know how to identify and troubleshoot errors. So essentially troubleshooting with Data Factory, real-time intelligence, notebooks, and T-SQL. And then finally, you need to know how to optimize performance. So in other words, optimize performance of pipelines, as well as various data engineering, data warehouse, and real-time intelligence options. And I hope you can see our presenter's top tip at the bottom of the screen. Learn how to optimize performance for the real world. Because if you do that, that will go hand in hand with the knowledge that you require for this particular exam.
Now, before you go on, this was just a quick summary But keep in mind that the previous recordings in this group are talk about these things in much more detail as well. So Kevin's just provided us a great summary, plus a good piece of advice, whether you're going to get certified or not. Here, learn how to optimize your performance. Yeah, that's whether you're going to take the exam or not. That's something that you should do.
Oh, yeah. Because obviously, as well as making the processes faster, you're going to save fabric CUs, which will keep your employers or your clients very happy.
Keep costs down.
Anyway, now I'm just going to do a quick introduction to the exam page and the study guide, just for the benefit of anybody who is there to see them. So, and I still happen to be down towards the bottom. Sorry, everyone. So this is the exam stroke certification page for the data engineering certification. So if we scroll down, an overview like we gave you just now, how to prepare for the exam. This is an important section because these are the recommended Microsoft Learn learning paths for you to study to take this exam. This is not the be all and end all, but these are the recommended Microsoft Learn material. This will give you a good foundation to be able to go to look to take the exam. Mm-hmm. So if I scroll further down, you can take the sandbox experience here. So that basically gets you used to the format of taking Microsoft exams. It gives you an overview of the exam, just like we're doing at the moment. And then I do want to highlight one small point here when you go off to book the exam. And I think we say this again later, but I want to stress this now. Microsoft recommends that you book your exams using your personal Microsoft Learn account. Because if you book with your Learn account, it says here in the text that your records will be lost. That's not 100% accurate. You can submit a request to Microsoft to get it changed over. But the preferred option is that you use your personal Learn account to book the exams. Now, some of you are probably thinking, well, how's my employer going to know that you pass? What you can actually do, and there is an article online on how to do this, you can actually link your work account with your personal Microsoft Learn account. Bit of advice for you all there. Good so tip. Here is where you can access the study guide. And as you can see, I've already opened it earlier. So I will open it again just to make sure I can go down to it. Security. I'll just have the F11 here. Sorry, folks. So what I will do here is just quickly jump into it and F11 back up. So here's the study guide. Now, first thing to note is that actually, if you're looking at our certifications as well, they are all available when you go to look at a particular study guide now on the left-hand side. So if I scroll down, it tells you the structure of the document. And if the exam changes over time, by the way, there's a good chance you'll see another link here to what's known as a change log, so you can see the changes. So if we scroll down, again, it's going to be the skills measured, as we gave you an overview about just now. And as you can see here, it just gives you more verbose details about what we just told you. So if you want to, you can go to this page afterwards and have a look yourselves. And then there's more links at the bottom of the page. And as you can see, if I zoom in a bit more as well, so just some additional links back to the exam page, for example, the Microsoft Q&A that you can take advantage of, the community support there, etc. So that's your very brief introduction, everybody, to the exam page and the study guide, along with our own tips. So now we have to give you some advice on how to prepare when the PowerPoint slide behaves itself. That was very seamless, wasn't it?
It was.
So first of all, study. Of course, this obviously is a common sense thing to say for everybody, but review the study guide that we showed you just now. And as the link we keep sharing. And of course, use community resources as well, as you can see in the presenter's hot tip at the bottom of the page. So For example, like I said, go through the study guide, community resources. You can find a lot of community resources online, etc. Microsoft have got a variety of places you can look for community resources as well. There's also now, if you're a member of the Fabric community site, there's actually a Fabric community blog now. And I have noticed that there are some exam related material appearing there. So feel free to go there and have a look. Yeah, lots of people from the community are doing material for this already. There are lots of blog posts, there are lots of videos by people, valuable members of the community. So feel free to have a look. Find the material that suits you and your needs. And that's an important thing as well, is one that suits for your way of working, because obviously we're all different. The human minds are all different. Some people learn from reading, some people learn from video, some people can learn from either methods. I actually think we cover this a bit more later on as well, but I will just state it here. As we showed you just now, use Microsoft Learn. Those recommended learning paths that I showed you just now, take advantage of those, go through them. Give yourself a good foundational knowledge about all the different elements that are covered by the exam. And as we mentioned, watch the Learn Together sessions. You can backtrack through and watch all the previous ones to dive deeper into all the different skills measured for the certification. And as you can see from our presenter's hot tip at the bottom, and this is something I tend to remind people a lot about. So obviously not everything is covered in the Learn modules, so you have to dig around the official documentation or additional tutorials on sections where you are less confident. Now, a couple of people in the community have already done additional material which aren't covered in Microsoft Learn. A good example of this, well, not in the recommended learning paths, a good example of this are database projects. There is some good material online about database projects already. You can look online via your search engine of choice or using, for example, Copilot in Edge to find this material. Now, when it is available, you can look to do the DP-700 practice assessment. So basically there will be a practice assessment available at some stage and you'll be able to go through and do an exam experience. Piece of advice, if you want to know what the practice assessment experience is going to be like, actually go to the DP-600 study guide and look at the practice assessment there, because then you will know what you have to look forward to once it is available. And familiar yourself with Microsoft Learn as well, because you can use Microsoft Learn during the exam. And as you can see, there's a presenter's hot tip at the bottom. For questions you don't know, navigate through Microsoft Learn for the answer. Don't use the search engine. And
can I share? Yeah, can I share two things about that statement?
I was going to go to the next slide.
Oh, go ahead.
No,
go ahead. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
So here we are, Belinda, the infamous use Learn during the exam section. So shall I go through this first before you put your comments
go ahead
in?
and go through it. Yeah.
Right. So as you can see here, folks, when you do the exam, you do have Learn available to be able to use. When you do go to use Learn during the exam, the second bullet point is crucial. The timer will still be going on your exam, so bear that in mind. So get very adept to working with Microsoft Learn and finding things before you go into the exam, because that means you'll find things as quickly as possible if you do rely on Microsoft Learn. Belinda's nodding her head. I know one of the points she's going to make shortly. So, yeah, and the resource Microsoft Learn, it will basically be in the same languages in which the exam is available, for those of you who are wondering. And now I'm going to hand it over to Belinda, who's going to point a couple of things out here.
Yeah. So the first one, I was talking with our fellow MVP and a good friend of mine, Stephanie Bruno. This morning we were chatting about something else, and she pointed out, because this is relatively new, that Microsoft lets us over the past couple years, that lets us have access to learn during an exam. And she had a tip that you should practice looking up things and learn without some of the normal browser tips, because this is not learn like you are used to using. They've taken out a lot of the things. They've scaled it down a bit. I think it's like the Control F. It's not there. So you have to do a little bit of practice doing that. And that's an excellent tip. But I was going to bare my soul to you and share with you a painful experience I had when I took the DP-600 the first time, which happened to be the first week of the exam. It was still in beta. And I'm halfway through the exam and I'm checking. I get to a question. I'm like, I'm not sure about this. And then I said, I know, I'll look it up and learn. So I stopped and I checked, and I was doing good on questions in time. So I went to look it up and I got an answer that I was satisfied with. And then the next question, I'm like, I'm a little unsure here. I'm going to just double check it and look and learn. So I looked and learned. I found I was right and I put the answer in. And then I slowly started becoming dependent on learn. Now, what happened was that learn slowed me down so much that I didn't have time to get to the whole last case study. Therefore, when I found out weeks later, because if it's in beta, you don't know for a month or two, I failed the exam. And looking at the score, it was a good probability. I'm not going to say I would have passed, but it's a good probability I would have passed if I had not wasted so much time in learn. So don't think, oh, learn is there. I can look up the answers. I'll take it. That will slow you down, and learn from my painful and shameful experience. So, yeah, learn how to use it. And I'll talk more about how to use learn as we go along. But yes, don't fail the exam because you got dependent on learn.
Yeah. And obviously me and Belinda, we've discussed this about this in the past. And this is my personal opinion, folks, that nothing beats actually going through and practicing for the material yourself and actually having at least the basics of everything before you go into the exam, including things like the basics of working with Python, etc., or PySpark, I should say. I personally think that you should be confident enough to be able to go in and pass the exam with the knowledge and your preparation instead of relying on learn. Obviously, learn can be great in those scenarios. You do get really stuck during the exam, and this is my personal opinion, like I said, but I personally think, yeah, make sure you put in the preparation for taking this exam. And have it in the back of your mind that learn is there as a resource. Again, this is my own personal opinion. And of course, you could just practice to get very adept with working with learn before you take the exam. But as it's been pointed out, the timer will keep going as you keep going through Microsoft Learn.
Yep.
And now, Belinda, it is over to you.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about what the exam is like, how it gets scored, and I also have some great tips for you. So let's move on to the next slide and talk about the exam itself. So the first thing you could see, there are 60 questions on the exam. And one of the things that I want to really point out on this is that you are scored based on correct answers. So you gain points by answering correctly. You do not lose points by answering incorrectly. Now, you may think this is the same thing. It is not. So you will not get an X if against you or points deducted for answering incorrectly. You'll only gain points by answering correctly. That means never leave a question unanswered unless you just don't get to it because you were in learn. But never leave a question unanswered. guess at it if you don't know it, and move on. So there's a way that you can mark it for review at the end. So if you're guessing it or you're unsure or you're uncomfortable, go ahead and mark it, answer it, and move on to the next question. Now, let's look at the element in the top right. How much time? Now, when you schedule your exam, you're going to schedule it for a 3-hour block. But that 30 minutes is really, there's 30 minutes that's not exam, it's getting prepped for the exam. We'll talk about that as I get into some of the tips a little more. There is 2.5 hours for the exam. So if you think about 60 questions in 2.5 hours, that means you have 2.5 minutes per question. Let's take it down to data. We're data people. So you need to be watching the clock and thinking about how am I doing on time? If it's getting, I did that at my halfway point when I was looking at Learn, but then I didn't keep up looking at it. I said, oh yeah, I'm good. I'm halfway through the test and halfway through the time. I'm good. But I didn't factor in, ongoing and start monitoring it. So keep that in mind. Don't linger on a question too long. Answer it as best you can, mark it, and move on to give yourself time where you're going to end up needing it, or potentially time to look up at the end. Now, when you get to the end, you could go back and review your questions. I do want to point out, though, that if there is a case study at the end of your exam, and so I have a tip in there about monitoring the question numbers, that you won't be able to go back and review the main question answers. The exam will guide you when it's time to review those. So keep in mind, if it's asking you to review your questions or where you've marked things and you've only answered 45 questions, there's another section with 15 more questions in it. So keep that in mind when you're looking at your time. Now, we'll just go to the bottom right since I was talking about case studies, because that would probably be a case study at the end. On a case study, you're going to be reading a case. It'll tell you what's going on, what the desired result is, and you're going to be answering questions about what you would do. And typically, they're going to be asking you about what is the best thing you can do next. And when you see a phrase similar to that, that means there's probably more than one answer that technically could be correct for something to do next, but only one will be the best one to do based on the goals usually of the case study. So they'll lay out the detailed information on the data, where it's coming from, how it's set up now, and then they're going to say, all right, but our goal is to maybe improve our performance or improve our refreshes, or maybe aggregate our data better, whatever the case may be. What is the next best thing to achieve those goals? Okay, so keep that in mind. We'll talk about what happens when more than one question is right in just a moment. And then back to it's more than just multiple choice questions. There are a lot of different options. There are areas where you could build the list by putting things in the right order. There's some drag and drop into sentences a lot of times. And then there is like active areas and hot areas. So this would be something that maybe looks like, perhaps it looks like a notebook, and you're populating where things would go in the notebook or into a pipeline or in a lake house or whatever you're working in at that point in time. So keep in mind, there's a lot of different options of ways question gets answered. And again, it's all performance based. And that's a key thing. You only get points for questions that are right. You do not lose points for questions that are wrong. That kind of test, you start at 100, and when you get questions wrong, it gets deducted. So guessing may be a little scary. Where in this case, you're getting points for anything that you answer correctly. So again, if you don't know it, don't linger on it. Answer the one you think is probably it and move on. A lot of time, your gut instinct, if you've been studying, is going to be right anyhow. Let's go ahead and go on to the next slide.
before we do, I have to. We're not using Microsoft Teams. I should put my hand up early. We have a question, and it's a very interesting question that's been submitted for us to answer. So I will relay it here.
Okay.
So the question is, how is the so the DP-700 varies from the DP-203. As most companies are still in the infancy stage of cloud migration, not using Fabric as of now, how is doing the DP-700 exam helpful in this case? Now, do you want me to answer this, Belinda?
Yes, this is in your ball field.
This is my ball, apparently.
Yep,
so
I just hit it with the cricket paddle.
The cricket bat. Yeah. I used to live near a very famous cricketer, or at least his family anyway. Anyway, back to the answer. So yeah, so obviously the DP-700 is different from the 203 because it's based in Fabric. However, it is still based on the same core concepts as the DP-203 exam. In fact, if you go to the Fabric Career Hub page, at the bottom of there is the data engineer row diagram has recently been updated. It actually mentioned specifically the 203 certification. So a lot of the concepts are the same. So even though the 203 is retiring and you have to take the 700 now, which is based in Fabric, you can still transfer some of the skills and concepts you learn for the DP-700 onto the Azure Data Engineering certification you still work with. So, for example, when you're working with data warehouses, some of the knowledge, not all of it, I must admit, can be ported over, for example, to Synapse SQL pools. When you're working with Spark Compute, when you're doing programming with Python, for example, that can be ported over, for example, to Spark Compute in Synapse. Some of the pipeline elements that you will learn when you study for the certification can be ported over to Azure Data Factory. So that is how you can adapt to using that knowledge at this moment in time, whilst your company is deciding when or if, etc., to migrate over to Microsoft Fabric. So I hope that has answered the question. If not, you're more than welcome to reach out to us after this session. If there's a follow-up question, then feel free to put it in, but I'm very aware that Belinda's still got a fair amount to do. I need to go to the next slide for her. So hopefully we'll be able to go to the next slide shortly.
Well, we're continuing on talking about the differences in exams. Now, one of the things also about the exam that I kind of I hope I've made my point talking about go ahead and answer questions if you're unsure of them. But I want to talk about the passing score. The passing score is 700, and the scores could range from 0 to 1,000. That does not mean it is 70%. I know it sounds like it would be, but the exam does have a cut score. And what this means, you could see the middle section, they talked about doing it on development. There's more than one Microsoft version of the DP-700 exam. They float around a lot of different questions, and they so that the exam, if you were to take it and fail, and then you signed up to take it again, there would be more than likely a slightly different version of the exam. Now, often, because the questions are going to be different, one exam might be considered to be a little easier than another exam. And that's what the cut score is about. So they have a little bit of a different weight on some of these. But so you're looking for 700 points regardless. Okay, so the scores will rate a little bit differently. Not all questions. There's only 60 questions, as you could see. So some of them have multiple answers to them, and that could be why you get the point. So there's a lot of different reasons why a cut score is not straight up 70%. But the point is you need 700 points in order to questions, enough correct answers to get to your 700 points. And they can update the exam at any time, and it could change the cut score, but it will always be 700 points that you need. Now,
Yeah.
tips and tricks from, oh, go ahead, Kevin.
No, I was just going to say, because the tips and tricks is a bit of a repetition. So do you want me to go
Yep.
to the next slide for the exam?
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go to the next slide. So what to expect on exam day. It depends if you're going into an exam center or you're going to be doing it virtually at your desk. And we'll talk more about the virtual at your desk in my next section of tips. But in this particular case, let's say that you're going to do it at your desk. A proctor will verify your identity. So you'll need to have usually like a legal form of ID, like a driver's license. Then a proctor is going to unlock the exam for you on your desktop. And this is part of what is taking the 30 minutes. Now that's going to happen after they do a lot of verification on your desktop to make sure that you're not going to cheat. Then you'll see a title screen with your name and the exam name on it so that you know you're taking the correct exam and that it is being taken on behalf of you personally. And by the way, that ID you had does need to have your photo ID on it. After you pass through the title screen with your exam name, then there's going to be a non-disclosure agreement. So Microsoft is going to want to make sure that you're not going to share the exam questions with anybody. They want everyone to pass the exam, but they also want the exam to be something that proves that you know the content. So there has to be a certain level of difficulty to it to make it valuable, but they really want to do everything they can to help you pass it. Read through everything that the instructions that they show you, and verify it. It'll talk about the time you have and tell you how you could manage it. And then completing the skill survey, there's a little mini test so you can get comfortable on how to answer the questions using that particular format of the exam. After you complete the skill survey, we're going to then the clock will start ticking and you're no longer in that 30-minute time. You'll be taking the exam. So take the exam. Any question you want to revisit, remember, don't linger too long on past one. Answer it, mark it. There's a way to mark it. Let's say it's like a little star for a favorite, something similar to that. Then when you are done, it will go back through those marked answers, and then you will submit your exam. It will score it, and you will get the results of your exam almost immediately, just in a matter of seconds. Hopefully you're going to be passing so you could celebrate, walk outside, and then let your family take you to dinner. So that's how the exam goes. Yeah.
I've just been very optimistic for everyone and gone straight to celebrate. So
okay, that's fine. Okay, I do have a lot of tips for you here. So let's get to the first page. And
you may have to do for the benefit of print screen here because obviously we are coming up to the hour.
Yep. Yeah. So go ahead and take a print screen of this real fast, and then we'll move on to the other exam. And don't worry, we do not have animation on these because there's a lot of them. So you might want to take a print screen here. So this came from me, Kevin Arnold, and our Saturday morning learning group. Okay, do not use learn until the end. We talked about that. Mark any unsure questions, but go ahead and select an answer. Watch your time. Remember, you have 2.5 minutes on average per question. So don't linger very long because you might need to use learn at the end. Use questions to answer previous questions. So if you get a question and you realize, oh, rats, and this happens a lot. This answered another question. I didn't mark that. Go ahead and mark the one that answers the question so that if you have time and get to the end, you could look through some of the ones you didn't mark to try to re-answer that. Note the number of questions you have in each section. I talked about this already because you don't want to think, oh, I have time to go through everything, and yet I can't because I have a whole case study left to do. Go to the restroom before you take the exam. Try to take your exam as early in the day as possible while your brain is clearer and you're not as stressed. No smoking devices allowed in the room. after you hear some of the virtual tips, you might want to think about going in person. If you have to use the following phrases to answer a question, remember, Microsoft is not trying to trick you. They're trying to help you. If the answer to the question is, it's this, but it could be this, then it's not the but it could. It is the first one, right? They are not trying to trick you. There are no include all depends. That is definitely something that you want to do. Read before you even look at the first answer. After you read the question, ask yourself how many answers they are looking for. Okay. They could say, what are the two best answers? And if you just get to the first one and you answer it correctly, because you're rushing through, you're going to miss an opportunity for another point because you stopped there. So verify the questions that they have. If they say all the correct answers, that means it could be one or more than one. It's probably more than one. So look for all the correct answers. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
Before we go to the next slide, we've actually got a few questions coming from people, and I'll do answer them quickly if that's okay. So question number one, can we use Visual Studio subscription credits for Fabric access? If you have Azure, I'll answer this. If you have Azure credits, you can indeed spin up you can deploy yourself a Fabric capacity that you can use in your Microsoft Fabric environment. However, there are other methods to get Fabric access as well. For example, if you work for a large enterprise, you may be eligible to register for the customer developer experience. And if you are, then you may be eligible after a waiting period to get an Microsoft 365 E5 trial tenant. In addition to that, if you go to your search engine of choice, you can also sign up for the E5 trial tenant as well. And that would also give you Fabric access. In addition to that, if you've got Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, you can register for the Microsoft Developer subscription, program subscription. And there you can also apply to have an E5 trial tenant. So I hope that answers your question there. So.
Okay. And then
I was just looking for another comment, but I just got a few more questions.
Yep.
Next question is, what's the difference between a DP-600 and DP-700 exam? The short answer is the DP-600 focuses on the Fabric Analytics Engineer role, and it focuses more on the working with the Power BI workload, in particular semantic models, whereas the DP-700 focuses on more of the traditional data engineering skills. So you mostly need skills for working with data engineering, data warehouse, and real-time intelligence workloads, as well as some knowledge about the data factory workload. And of course, let's not forget that one piece of knowledge about Power BI workload for the semantic model refresh. Oi, I have a question.
The last question. Yeah, I do have a tip for. Yeah, the tip on the case studies. One big tip is if you're taking it virtually, there will be a workspace area on the screen where you could write notes. If you're taking it in person, there's probably going to be a little either blank paper and a pen or a little whiteboard probably, so that you can't take the paper with you. Write down, this came from my friend Sheila Hart, write down the points that they are trying to achieve on the case study. And then that way, when you're answering the questions, it's easier than going back and looking at, now, what did they want to achieve? You could look at it right on your bulletin there. Yeah. Okay, cool. Let's go back to the last tip of all of the big slides that I have here. So let's talk about that virtual exam a little bit more. Again, check the rules of the environment when you set up and prepare your desk. This will mean you need to clear your desk off entirely. They only want one monitor on the desk. So if you have other monitors, Some people will take them off the desk. Some people will put blankets over them or towels over them. If you don't do that, you have to show them that they are indeed unplugged. So probably easier just to throw a towel or a blanket over them. Make sure that you have admin rights to your own machine to turn off certain apps if you are requested to do so. The online exam will look at what's running on your machine, and they very likely might ask you to turn something off. Move your phone and your watch, particularly if it's a smartwatch, just out of reach. Close enough by that if they call you, you could reach over and answer it. They might, but not so close that you could see it. I usually put it behind me so they could tell if I'm looking, but keep it just out of reach. Make sure your room. Yeah, what is that?
Sorry, I've got another bit relating to your phone as well, folks. Another piece of advice when you go to sit your exam. Make sure if you've got any set alarms on your phone that you actually turn them off before you sit the exam, because you don't want your exam. I don't want your phone going off, your alarm in particular, going off before the exam. Belinda, I think this may be another instance where you say to everybody, for the benefit of those who want to use print screen, they print the rest. They print the rest of this screen out. I'm just checking there's no more questions coming in from anybody at this moment in time. Actually, finish off on the practice bit, Belinda, and then we go for that.
Quiet room. And if you are someone who likes to read moving your lips to help let your brain hear it, you probably want to try to do the exam in person then. So keep these things in mind. Is it worth it? You'll have to take pictures of the front, the back, and the sides of your desk and submit them ahead of time. There's a lot you have to go through. Although in person, depending on where you live, it could also vary a bit. I lived in New York City longer than anywhere else. And when I would go take an exam there, I even had to take my earrings off and put them in the locker. So you know how trusting New Yorkers are. So yes, these are all tips for the virtual exam.
Yeah. And obviously, Belinda's always a photo of advice about practicing at the bottom underneath as well, including ones like if you got your exam in the morning, get your brain going, answer a few. Here's another question you might be able to answer this from Belinda. It's just coming in now. How many sections are there in the exam? Or can I do my typical SQL DBA answer from my previous?
Sure.
Here? So the answer to this, as much as we can say, is that it depends. There is clearly not going to be a set base route for this. So
the answers are all, the questions are all jumbled together. So there may be a case study, questions, or there may be questions in a case study, or there may be case study, questions, case study.
Yeah. So I hope that answers your question as best as we can. They are all bundled together, like Belinda mentioned, and we're just going to go through the last section now. So as you can see here, these are all the previous events that have taken place. So if you want to backtrack through, here's all the different ones that have already been recorded. As you can see, we are, Belinda read a headline act, yeah? Is that right? Because we're at the end. We're the headline act. We're at the end.
Oh, yeah, we're the headliner, yeah.
So here, as you can see, you get the 50% discount, as we mentioned earlier. We mentioned about FabCon. And then here, just a reminder again about the Power BI Data Viz World Championships, like Belinda was talking about earlier. And I'm not seeing any questions come forward our way yet, Belinda. That is it as far as I'm aware. So.
Yep, we're a little bit over. Thank you for hanging with us. Sorry, if you know us, you know we get excited. The enthusiasm is genuine with us.
Yeah, this is the topic we are both very passionate about, as some of you in the community are probably already aware of. So Bye, folks.
Bye.